All right, welcome to our final meeting of the New York Giants Preservation Society for 2023. Today is December 28th, 2023. We're going to run things a little differently tonight. I'm going to talk, let you guys talk. I don't know how long that's going to be, and then we'll stop the recording because, if you want to talk about the Giants and if you don't want to be nice about it, nobody has to hear that, in case anybody important is listening. Right, Judge? All right. So just in the next couple of weeks, next week, we have Zach Ford. He wrote a brand new book about how people came up to the major leagues, their first appearances, and he's going to slant that toward the Giants. And then the following week, for good old Frank Lewis, Peter M. Gordon, not Peter and Gordon, Peter M. Gordon. He's going to talk about Clint Hartog. So that'll off. And then the following week will be Alex Pavlovich, which will talk about the present day team. And by that time, the Giants will have either signed somebody or traded for people or did nothing. So we shall see what happens with that. Okay, so I'm going to do a year-round wrap-up of our group, what has transpired, and then we'll open up the floor for people to make comments, if they have any ideas to improve the group, if they think there's too much stuff going on in a particular manner or whatever. But this year, we celebrated our 100th Zoom meeting with Maury Bouchard in February. We also developed in February also our YouTube channel. There are 181 subscribers on there. I'm sure most of them are not from this group, so it's a great channel to revisit speakers and their platforms. Dan Taylor's on there like 3 or 4 times, and anybody, Dan Levitt's there a couple of times. It's just a good, if you have nothing to do, you want to remember stuff. And if you're writing anything, of course, it's a great thing for research. So there are, I don't know whose machine is on, but if you shut it off, maybe that bit. So there's 181 subscribers as of now. There are 133 Zooms. Every Zoom that was ever recorded is on there from this group from the inception. There's only 3 that are missing, and those were by choice. This is our 39th Zoom of the calendar year. So during the year also, we developed a timeline, a history of the group, where we started off, meetings at Bergino's, Infinities, and all the way down to COVID forcing the formation of this, basically a virtual group that at some point we will be together live, and we'll go from there. We did a magnificent tour of the Polo Grounds with Peter Laskowicz, that John Miller accompanied us, as did Evan Webeck, a writer for the Giants. It was a fabulous tour right before opening day. I went to opening day at Yankee Stadium. I don't know, I kind of sensed it would be a long year. And other than a month and a half of good ball, it was a long year. So May saw us celebrate Willie Mays' 92nd birthday. Every Zoom was dedicated to Mays. I'd like to make that an annual thing. So hopefully he's in good health, and we will continue this trend of honoring and celebrating his history. Along the way, we had a lot of people asking and requesting people with knowledge of the polo grounds and other areas. So a lot of you contributed to the upcoming books that will be coming out. One's about Candlestick Park. You know, Ken has contributed, and I know a lot. I think Bill Klink as well, and I think Norm Coleman. And, you know, I send it out, and once I send it out to the writer of the book, it's up to them to pick. I have nothing to do. I'm not against anybody. It's their call. They're the author. So, but you should all be honored that they somehow search me out and find me. And hey, do you know anybody who attended the polo grounds or saw Willie Mays or whatever? And then that's why I forward all those messages to you guys, because, you know, they want me to speak, and what am I going to lie to them? I wasn't there. I didn't see it. I saw them as the San Francisco Giants in 1969. So, and again, all of us, all of you were acknowledged in the book that I put out. It came out in November. And really, besides it being my story, it's the story of how this group started and where we have come. And, you know, we are a recognized group now. Everybody should be proud that this group is thought of highly, because we are. So with that being said, I had one guy who said he wasn't going to be on here tonight, Bruce Slutsky, and he said, Gary, I'd like to come up with a few ideas for the upcoming year. And one of them was to have a dinner meeting in New York City. I told him, you know, and he said it didn't have to be a speaker, just people who wanted to get together and talk about the Giants and not necessarily have a guest speaker. And I thought that was a great idea. So if any of you would live in the city and think of a place, Mort, I know you are there. If any of you could think of a place that you think would be suitable for such a thing, if you give me some names, I'd be happy to work on it. So,
Gary, if you do have such a meeting, can you Zoom it to the rest of us?
If I could figure out what the heck to do, you're lucky I can do this, Bill.
Well, I meant just the speaker. I mean, if you've got a dais there and you invite people up and they speak at the dinner, that would be, you know, just zooming in.
I would think it'd be more of a casual thing where we just sit and yap.
Okay.
You know? Steve, I won't use schmooze, okay? I won't use that word. The other thing he said, which I was thinking about anyway, was the Giants are coming in to play the Mets May 24th to May 26th. So maybe get a feel of if anybody wants to go in mass to a Met game. So anyway, I'd like to hear from you guys, whoever wants to speak. Once we're done speaking, like I said, I'll just stop the recording. But any ideas of what you'd like to see? You know, I know I set up the meeting to get the people, but this is our group, okay? And I'm dead serious about that. So any guest speakers that you think we should try to get, feel free to email me, and, you know, we'll go from there. Steve, go ahead, Steve.
If it's our group, would you call it Cosa Nostra?
I'm sorry?
If it's our group, would it be proper to call it Cosa Nostra?
I'm not understanding.
Cosa Nostra, our thing, our group.
And Dan, you're laughing, so you're understanding. I'm not.
He's saying something about La Cosa Nostra.
If it's our group, are we the La Costa Nostra?
Oh, God, nice Espanol.
Making a joke.
I
We're Gary's La Costa Nostra, Bill.
Steve, you are up.
Okay, I'm in a public area tonight because there's people working in my house, so I'm going to mute once I get off. I don't want to have any background noises. I just want to reiterate what I said before most of you came on, that this is an incredible job that he did for the last 3+ years, and then culminating in a book which is actually selling to others than just this group, because it's a baseball book and it's a good read. Gary's done a terrific job. This is not an easy thing to do, especially where he doesn't have control over everybody. I know I always say, and I'm going to reiterate this because I know Gary doesn't want to demand, but when we have a speaker, everybody has to mute themselves. You know, there's no reason to hear a dog barking or somebody getting a phone call. And I was guilty once or twice. You have to mute yourself. And then when he calls on someone to speak, that person speaks, nobody else. Then he calls on the next person. And he tries to keep some kind of order, but it's very hard. When I have my meetings here, it's a whole different ballgame because I'm in a room with a group of people. So I can control them much easier. So a little bit of self-control, you know, will go a long, long way. But what he's done and what he's going to continue to do, because I know him, it's not going to stop. And I'm hoping that some of us can get together here in the Phoenix area during spring training. That's why I asked Rick when he was coming down. I know I opened it up to, I know Norm was not going to be able to do it, but I mentioned it to Renee and I also mentioned it to Mars and Dan. I don't know if you come down during spring training. And I know Gary wants to come down and hawk his book and really see the Giants at home, and he can root for them at home as opposed to going to Citi Field where you're still the visitors. So kudos to you, Gary. And this group is great. I made some friends here that I never would have met if it wasn't for Gary. So thank you for all you do, Gary.
Steve, it's very kind. And that's really one thing that I'm very proud of is that, God, we've gotten people from all over the country involved here, from Alaska and Hawaii and Delaware, Arizona and San Francisco and everywhere. And a lot of us have become close friends. And it's nice where you could talk to somebody and not just talk about Giant baseball. Just, hey, man, how's your family doing? You know, Harvey, how's your grandson doing? You know, blah, blah, blah. So that's one great thing that I really treasure. And, you know, we keep on adding people, which is great. I mean, Larry Simmies here tonight. I met Larry through Lincoln Mitchell, and he lives in San Francisco, and he wrote a great piece about the Giants coming to San Francisco in our newsletter that I hope many of you read. It was a nice long piece, and it was very descriptive. And I'm so glad he's here now. He has a friend, Ken, who's also a San Franciscan, who was there when the Giants came. And it's nice seeing a different viewpoint of, instead of everybody being upset that the Giants left, that you hear the other aspect of, hey, we can't believe we got a Major League Baseball team coming to our state. And I know that hurts people in New York, but you know, this group is open to everybody. And the prime thing here is we're all 95% of us, except Frank, you know, root for the Giants still. So, with that being said, Howard, you were up.
Well, I just want to say it's been a pleasure being part of this group this year, and I kind of came across in mid-season, I guess you could say, when you gave me a phone call one Saturday morning, I think it was, Gary, and I'm very happy to be here. I dedicate every one of my appearances here in memory of my father, who was a big New York Giant fan, and today I'm wearing a sweatshirt that belonged to him. I don't know if he really got this when they were still in New York, but after my father left us, I found this lying around, and it fits me pretty nicely. So I'm dressed like my dad would have been tonight. And people say I look like him too, so maybe he's back to life tonight. I don't know. One thing I would like to say about the legacy of the Giants of New York is that it bothers me that a lot of adults, particularly adults who I work with who are in their 30s and 40s, have no clue that the Giants once played in New York. Now, I know that whatever, and the kids, I don't expect them to know much of anything. They don't even know that the A's once played in Kansas City, or there was 3 Washington Senator teams, or whatever the number's been. But when they're with their families, or when their teachers, I should say, people in their 30s and 40s, maybe even above that, do not know that the New York Giants ever existed, it blows me away. It really does. You know, and I give them a little bit of an education about the team. They know Willie Mays, but, you know, Willie Mays was a lifelong San Francisco Giant. And I said, no, he was a New York Giant, and he played football. And I got, he wasn't with the football Giants, although they did share the Polo Grounds at one point. The football Giants played in the Polo Grounds before moving across the river. So, I kind of educate the grown-ups a little bit about the legacy of the Giants, many of whom are Met fans. Some are, for God reasons, I don't know why, they're Yankee fans here in New Jersey. But I educate them, and I've even mentioned this group to them, and that it kind of brings me back to the old days. And I'm glad to say I was alive when the New York Giants were here. I was 4 when they finished up in New York, but my father was such a diehard fan that I try to keep his legacy alive. So I'm very pleased to be with this group. I know I attended meetings back in the city when that group first started. I don't even remember what year it was, early 2010, 11, whatever I can think back. But if there was a dinner in the city at some point, I would probably try to get to it. In fact, my son now lives in New York. I could stay in his apartment for the night. Lives on the Upper West Side, West 70, Upper East Side, excuse me. Just moved a couple of weeks ago, and I'd be sleeping on the living room couch, but that's okay with me. Better than schlepping back to Jersey at 11 p.m. or whatever. So I want to thank you, Gary, and thank everybody else here. Maybe some of you I'll meet. I certainly had you guys on my mind when I was in the Bay Area a couple of weeks ago. I kind of felt even more of a connection, although, I wasn't at a meeting at that point. And looking forward to next year, Eddie. And baseball, I have to admit, I'm still mostly a Met fan. I follow the Giants a little bit for sentimental reasons, but I'll root for anybody who'll beat the Dodgers. I mean, anybody. The Giants are my top choice, though. And I do hope next year under the new manager who, and if they can get some free agents, the Mets are kind of like picking up 3rd or 4th tier free agents. I don't know how these guys are going to help them next year. But hopefully next year will be a good season. Right now, I'm kind of too into hockey. The Rangers are doing great. But I did put aside my Rangers stuff for tonight to wear my father's shirt. And this hat, which I got just a couple of years ago, it's not from the New York Giants, but it looks like one. So thanks, Gary, and thanks everybody else, for making me feel welcome here.
Thank you, Howard. Great shirt. You're doing your father proud.
Yeah, I hope so. I almost buried him with it, but I kept it for myself.
Jim Weber, you are up. Jim, are you there? All right, we're going to skip Jim and we'll go.
Oh,
There he is. Jim,
here.
go ahead.
Yeah, Gary, I just wanted to say thanks for all the great work that you're doing. One thing I really like is that email you put out every to remind us of every meeting and all of the background. That's really some good stuff. So I want to compliment you on that. You're a great organizer. The other thing I wanted to say is, there's a lot of us here in the group that don't see what Steve Rothschild does. I know you and Steve are great buddies and you've worked together for a long time. But Steve also puts on a very similar program that you do that most of us don't see, although I'm lucky enough to be a member of that group as well. And I wanted to thank Steve for all the great work that he does too, promoting the sport. So thanks to all of you.
Very, very kind of you, Jim. And, I want to be honest about the emails. I send out usually one after the Zoom and then a reminder the following week just to tell you, hey, don't forget kind of a thing. And then occasionally something else will come out like the newsletter or whatever. And sometimes I feel like it's too much going out. I get responses on some of them, and most go, unheard or unseen, whatever. But, if you guys ever think it's too much, please let me know. I'm just trying to, I know we're all adults and you're told, hey, you got to pay your taxes on this day. You're reminded once, And,
I don't think you can.
But I like, that's just how I am.
I don't think you can have too much information. So I think it's great. And I hope you keep it up because it's all our choice. Read it or not.
Thank you, Jim. That will continue then.
I agree with that too. I
Thank you.
appreciate everything you do for us.
Thank you, Hindi. Renee, you're up.
Yeah, I wanna thank you. And you know what, Steve? I thank you too. The both of you guys started something and Gary ran away with it with this, and you ran with it with what you have. But the essence of what you guys started and what has evolved, Gary, with you. And no, there's not enough information you could throw out there. You know what, Gary? I eat it up. I'm not gonna lie, I eat that stuff up. And then my associations with all you guys. Love it. I mean, your opinions, your stories, those little things, that come out. out of an interview from a writer, a broadcaster, personal. You can never get enough of that stuff. So I appreciate everything that everybody gives to this group. One of the things that was brought up earlier, Gary, and was thinking about it a lot, trying to get the Giants through social media. Don't they have their own, exclusive? Maybe go after that. You know what I'm saying? I really like this group to be pushed in such a way that, Gary and everybody here is proud of, more people coming involved in this, more people wanting to know history of this, more people want to listen. You got all New York Giants stuff over the years through through Zoom, and also you've gotten some San Francisco. I mean, Will Clark. I mean, that stuff is so interesting and so fascinating on a not only on a level of let's say Will Clark of his experience, but some of his personal aspects of what he went through playing the game. I mean, you're not getting that unless you're getting a book, and then you're getting more so. So with that being said, Gary, keep going with this. I hope this thing grows to such a degree that, we get more people, if not join the group, follow the group via YouTube and social media, and you know what, all that new stuff, keep bringing it on. I love it. I eat it up, and I'm sure everybody will eat it up at some point or other. And thank you again, everybody.
Renee, my pleasure. This wasn't a meeting to, throw stuff at me. I just want to say thank you for everybody for your kind words before we go any further. And Renee, I totally agree with you. The whole thing with the Giants getting maybe involved, hopefully, it's not to get 100 people in here on the Zoom. It's to be acknowledged, like you said, that YouTube channel, we should have like 1,000 subscribers, with people if they're interested, because as much as this is a New York group, again, we have so many of you who root for San Francisco, and then we have like Dan Taylor. Whenever he writes a book, he has that way of just wedging in something with the New York, which is fabulous. And if he didn't, I'd invite him anyway. So,
Gary, with that being said, the views are very important as well.
Yeah.
Very huge thing. I mean, they may not be a part, may not be interested, but if they follow a certain, meeting, I mean, any little bit helps, and that's a huge help as well.
Yeah,
Thanks again.
I also want, I just wish we had some more women in here, because I know Hindi's lonely. So I know she's always talking about other. I just want to show you one other thing. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so just so you're aware, if you aren't aware, we have a Facebook page. This is the New York Giants Preservation Society Facebook page. And I never post any of the meetings on here. I post the recaps of them. So the reason I do that is because this way I can control stuff as best I can. And, you'll see here, Christy Matheson lives. So this was our meeting last week with Eddie Frierson, and, and then there's a link for the Zoom. So maybe that attracts a few people. So we have that page. This is our YouTube page. You see there's 182 subscribers, 136 videos that I made. Like I said, there's 133 Zooms. There's also some other ones in there about our walking tour, and they don't count ones that I took off the YouTube themselves. That one where Dave Littman's on there with Mark Melanson, for example. It's on here, but it's not included in their total. So there's really about 146 different videos. And the last thing is, this is our, our webpage. Honestly, it's there more to legitimize ourselves. Mostly it has what happened in Giant history. Most of the really heavy stuff is on the Facebook page and the YouTube channel. So I just wanted to show you that in case you didn't know that stuff. Harvey, you are up.
Well, I have a cold, but that'll help me to try and reprise what was one of the highlights of the past year when Gary was tooling down the Long Island Expressway, heading to the Polo Grounds.
Douglaston Parkway.
What?
We were at the Douglaston Parkway exit.
Yes, and the phone rang and Gary answered it and the voice came on and said, "Hello, Gary. This is John Miller." And I said, "Holy smokes, that really is John Miller." And John was asking Gary nuts and bolts questions about how to get to the Polo Grounds. And Gary was unfazed. You know, this is the great John Miller. And I'm sitting there in the shotgun seat, and I'm thinking, how come we're not recording this? The past year has, I mean, Gary had said we were going to discuss some of the things of the past year. If I'm not mistaken, my brain is fried, and I don't think I have COVID. I took the test and it came back negative.
The cold, that's right.
Yeah, it's just a cold. But when Will Clark came on and he spoke to our grandson James about don't give up that number 22. There's a lot of hits in it. I say that to James every time I see him. Don't give up 22. And the other thing is there are so many great books that have been mentioned on these Zoom meetings. I got it a long time ago. This is Dan's book about George Genovese. And it just takes me longer to read through it. It's fascinating. It's more than fascinating. It tells me things that I don't know. And then there's Gary's book, which is over across the room, which is from the heart. So it's a wonderful 2 hours or however we'll on this Zoom meeting each week. I look forward to it. Even when the Giants are scuffling and we're cursing them, and but it helps. And I'm going to finish up, Gary. You know I've told you this both on the Zoom and off the Zoom. You're an educator. You're not just a teacher. You're an educator, and your father would be proud of you. He was a librarian. You're all in the same business, teaching us how to do it. And there's a lot we've learned outside of the Zoom meetings about the Giants. So I'm going to finish up with something that I actually have on my flat screen right now, because we're entering a very interesting year, 2024, right?
Right.
So here's the question. Can you name 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notable players who wore 24?
Willie Mays.
Well, that's the easy one.
That's the
Ken Griffey.
Ricky Henderson. Ricky Henderson.
Ricky Henderson. Somebody said Ken Griffey Jr. Barry Bonds wore 24 when he played with the Pirates.
That's right. That's right.
Tony Perez played for the Reds, the Expos, and the Phillies. Manny Ramirez played for the Indians, Red Sox, and the Rays. And Miguel Cabrera played for the Marlins and the Tigers.
And can we say Rick Barry in basketball too?
We don't acknowledge any other sport on here. When Gary
Art Shamsky, the Mets, the Miracle Mets. Art Shamsky was 24.
Yeah, Shamsky wore 24. A couple of other
Shamsky
players.
was 24?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So was Robinson Cano.
Yeah, Robinson Cano.
Robinson
But
Cano was 24.
the moment that he finally quit, Steve Cohn retired Willie's number. Cohn's a
Do
class.
you know why
Wait,
Robinson
Gary,
Cano wore number 24? Do you guys know that story?
say again?
Harvey, do you know why he wore 24?
I believe it's because it's backwards 42.
Yes, because you couldn't wear Robinson's number. That's correct.
Right.
Steve, you should talk to your buddy Faham about 2024.
He's your buddy. He gave you all those seats. Don't you remember? You're calling me again for more seats? How many
Irvin and
seats did you
May,
want?
Irvin and Mays.
Yeah.
You know. Harvey, thank you so much. Bill, you are up.
It's very hard to follow Harvey. He said such nice things and he stole a lot of my thunder. But Gary, I mean, it's amazing that the last time we saw you guys was the meeting. I'm trying to remember which one it was. Maybe it was Lincoln, maybe talking in the old bar on 2nd Avenue, and then COVID hit, and what are we gonna do? And you learned Zoom. You got this all. You got us all organized, and it's amazing how you did this. You said you weren't too technological. You were a little challenged, but you really, it's incredible what you did.
I think it's incredible. This should be like a science thing where that you can teach old dogs new tricks. I mean, all of us, I don't think any of us knew what we were doing. And other than, learning how to mute, we're pretty damn good, as long as it's not, I mean, I just shared the screen. I didn't know how to do that. Somebody, I think, might have even been Dan Levitt or somebody said, this is how you do it. And they wanted to take control of the screen. They told me what to do. And then I figured out how I could do it also. So, I was supposed to speak up at Cooperstown a few years ago. And they canceled it because of COVID. And then the next year, 2021, they wanted to do it virtual. And I said, look, I can't do that. I don't know what I'm doing. Now I would be able to do that. So yeah. I'm happy about that.
So you've done a tremendous job. A dinner would be great. I was just looking to see if Forlini's was still in business, where we used to have the old giant meetings.
Oh, yeah.
They went out of business in 22, unfortunately, probably because of COVID. Maybe, I don't know.
So we have quite a few people live in the city. Maybe Hindi and Mort and Bruce. Maybe they could come up with some idea of where it might be, and it doesn't have to be, the Ritz fancy place.
No, it should
It's a nice place to eat. We could, talk.
And I'm actually in the middle of your book, and in a way, I look at it myself because we were in the kind of the same situation of rooting for a team, living on Long Island, and I'm a few years older than. So when did you actually go to your first game in San Francisco? I'm up to the point in the book. I'm in the 80s right now in your book. So
2004, Steve and I saw the reunion of the 50th.
I know you got married young and you had your kids younger than I did, but when did you, how come you never got out there before? And I also had another question. You were working for Record World, which I bought a lot of records there. When did you become a teacher?
So
how did that? I know I got to read. I'm still in the middle of the book, but when did you get from Record World to being a teacher in the city?
So I worked in Record World. I was a store manager.
Right.
And then I became a new store coordinator. I went around on the East Coast setting up stores. I'd be gone for a week and then come home. Once the company started going downhill, I was put back in the stores.
Oh, okay.
And I worked in the flagship store, Roosevelt Field. So, and I was the highest paid manager. I think I was making $36,000.
Wow.
Well, when the company was sold, as Ralph Cramden would say, I was the first to go. They started finding stuff wrong with my work, and I was sensing it. So at night, I started to go to school, and I lived in Plainview, and our landlord's daughter said, you are really good with kids. You should become a teacher. And I don't know what happened. Something went off my head. I said, hey, that sounds okay. So I went to Hofstra, and they told me, hey, you need 36 credits. That history degree you got in Albany, New York, which I thought was worthless, actually wasn't worthless. So I got a master's in education, and that's how I became a teacher. Just with growing up and with the kids, to me, it just wasn't an opportune time to spend money. You know, I was raising a family, and you know, I did get to go out there to speak on education. I write these mock trials, but the Giants were not. It was March, so that was no good. And then my wife gifted me. She was lovely, gifted me a trip to see the Giants actually play, and I worked it out with Steve, and it turned out to be the 50th anniversary of the 1954 last team to win in New York. They were being honored, so it
So you
was
never saw, you never got the candlestick then?
no.
No.
When I went in the off season, when about speaking, my friend Audrey, who lives in San Francisco, first place I told her, I said, Audrey, you need to bring me to Candlestick Park. And we went to the park, and it was all gated up, you know, because by that time the Giants had moved. But,
Right.
you know, you still saw the bowl, and the 49ers were still, you know, playing there. So that was, besides you know, when I got to San Francisco for the first time, the people I were with, my principal and the husband, they were like, come on, let's, you know, let's take a tour, and we'll go to Chinatown. And I was like, there's no way. I said, I waited all my life. I am walking to Hack Bell, it was called. And I'm walking, and I don't see anything, and I have my recorder. And then all of a sudden I saw the light standards. And I was like, you know, I finally made it. I waited all my life. So, you know, that's detailed in the book. That was a great moment. So
Gary,
the whole idea of the book was, Bill, like a lot of you guys, it's the story of me rooting for Giants, but I felt that I was describing something that a lot of you went through, and you would relate to it, and it would resonate. So
Yeah, staying up a lot of late nights trying to get scores, and it's like, and you know, but it's just the thing was when you were rooting for them back then, even when they're not a good team, were you expecting more from them? Or did you know
always,
they were? Because when you're a kid, you don't realize, you know, you didn't know they weren't that good. It was sort of like, you know,
it
all
was,
Stoneham was selling the team off, and it's like, you know, we were, you know, I was, you know, 13, 14 years old, you know, like.
you know, I was saying in the book, you know, and it might offend people, but I righted the ship. You know, I was rooting for them to move to Tampa and Toronto.
Yeah, I know.
You
I didn't
know,
want them to.
but you know, now looking at it after seeing what you guys have suffered through, how fair is that? I mean, that's awful.
No.
So I think somebody asked me last week if I had my way, would I have the Giants leave San Francisco and come back here? That'd be wonderful, but it's not right.
Not gonna happen.
Invested all that time in San Francisco. So
Gary, do you know if any members of our group have ever been to the Polo Grounds? I've been there when the Mets were playing the Giants, but I was never there when the
Arby's
New York Giants
there,
were playing
I've been there.
Steve, Frank,
for the Giants.
Michael Frank
when
was
Giants
there.
played there.
Yeah.
yeah, Gary, I'd like to say something. Do you hear me?
Yeah, who is this?
I am one that I listen almost every week. My name is Marty. If you take a look at the thing, it says Zoom user. I'm a Brooklyn Dodger fan. I'm 82 years old, and I started to listen to your show and on Zoom. And I want to thank you, Gary, and the whole Giant Preservation Society. You're doing a great job. Even though I'm not a Giant fan, I find every episode very interesting. Going back to Carl Erskine, to everyone you had. And I want to thank you guys for keeping me busy, and I appreciate all you do. You're not going to see my name on the thing. I'm just a Zoom user. But anyway, I'm always on. So thanks a lot, guys. Thank you very much.
Marty, I guess you don't want to share your last name, but I assume you're in my address book because you're on here, correct?
My last name is Blumberg, and
Okay.
you did contact me one time.
Okay.
So yeah, but
You'll be happy to know.
Where do you live?
I've gone to Ebbsfield many times.
Zoom user, where do you live?
I live in Melville, Long Island.
Marty, you live right next to me.
Oh yeah, and not only that,
I live in Huntington.
I'm from Brownsville, Brooklyn, and I used to go down. Just so you know, I used to save LC wrappers from the ice cream, and if I had 10, I would get in free. And I saw many of Brooklyn Dodger fans. I was more like a Pee Wee Reese, Duke Snyder you name it, Jackie Robinson, and I've seen the Giants play there too. And I'm not a great baseball fan now, but I do enjoy your show, and thanks a lot for all you've done.
Thank you. And
Marty,
besides,
I remember, Marty, who was the guy that did the,
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Who was what?
The guy in the early 50s that did the Dodgers pre and post game show, Talks of the Stars.
Oh, Vince Scully?
Happy Felton. Happy Felton.
Happy Felton.
Happy Felton.
Happy Felton was the guy that used to do the pregame shows too.
Marty, as a Dodger fan, you should be happy that Carl Erskine got the most views. We had 96 people in here for Carl Erskine.
It was terrific because I'm on the Bell Parkway and I passed that sign where it says Erskine, and I always think of the show too. So thanks a lot, guys. You're doing a great job and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Bill, were you finished? All right, Judge, you are up.
Okay, Gary, I know you're tired of the flowers, but I got to start that the highlight of my year was the book. And it was reading it, enjoying it myself. It was also having my wife read it, and she was relieved to learn that I wasn't the only one bitten by the bug. So I appreciate that. I got to start with a question and then a suggestion for next year, maybe. My question is, I'm looking at the Giants schedule. April 27th in San Francisco is New York Giants throwback jersey night. I was wondering how that came about, if they've done it before, and maybe what prompted it this time.
They have done certain events. When Steve and I went, it was Polo Grounds night. They gave a replica of the Polo Grounds. They've done bobbleheads with Willie Mays and Bobby Thompson, Monty Irvin, things like that. How it came about this year, I have no clue. It just showed up there, and I think Steve sent me the link, and Bill Schiffner might have sent it to me, but don't recall. I posted it on Facebook. Looks like a nice giveaway.
All right, call the Giants, tell them to send us each one.
Believe me, that's on my list. So.
All right, and my suggestion for next year, just as you're looking for speakers and just thoughts, I thought it might be interesting to have one night focusing on the Giants farm system. I know Dan's had some great insights about the farm over the course of the years. I've enjoyed those comments, but to have someone on could tell us a little bit about the farm system, the top 30, and what they see. Anybody on X or Twitter still follow it? Someone like Roger Munter, who regularly reports on the Giants farm system. If you can get someone like that, I think just one night mid-season to look at the top 30 would be really.
Roger Munter, if you watch the Crowley podcast, he's on with him a lot. Mm-hmm. So we should be able to. I don't think that would be that difficult.
Yeah, I think it would be of interest to the group. So
it's a very good idea.
Just a suggestion for next year. Thanks again for all you do, and appreciate all your friendship. Thank you.
And a mighty good one at that. Thank you, Jim. Mr. Paul, you're up.
Yeah. Hey, Gary. Hi, guys. Gary, I my two favorite items of the year. I think I would agree with the judge that your book was certainly one of them. That was just, terrific, being in Massachusetts and going through the same thing you did, not seeing them unless they were on the game of the week and trying to get scores. And the only problem for me is when MLB finally came around and did all the games that I could get access to, I was too old to stay up too late. I mean, I did the best, and then I had to work. I had to be in school at 7 a.m. So you know what getting up early is like. So, but anyway, and the other thing was I could not get over the Will Clark interview on his cell phone from Mississippi while he was hunting and talking to us in his truck. It blew me away. And what a nice guy. I mean, he just is just Mr. Giant, personified, just really, really wonderful. And you deserve a tremendous amount of credit, as everybody has said. And I am really happy that, that you're a friend, and so is everybody here. I would just, on a personal note, for anybody who's here, comes to the Savannah area at all during the winter, it's not that far to go to the Ty Cobb Museum or the Joe Jackson Museum. If anybody's down in this area and would like to go, it's really, really a nice ride up. It's a little long. It's about 4 hours up toward Greenville. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. I had one suggestion for next year. the New York, the Lincoln Group of New York, of which I've been president for the last 8 years, has a meeting in a restaurant in Greenwich Village. It's called Villa Moscone. It's 2 blocks from Washington Square, and it's close to the 4th Street subway stop, and it's got a parking garage 2 blocks away. The food is Italian. It's really good. It's served like family style, and it ends up costing, cost-wise, it's $40 for the dinner plus $10 per person in cash for the tip for the waiters. And it's a nice venue, and it's small, and it would be a fine place. If that's something you think you want.
I like it.
Yeah, isn't it nice? Their chicken parm is out of this world. It's really
Oh, that's
thin
good.
and it's terrific. I've known Jerry for the last 4 or 5 years, and we've had our meetings there. So anyway, thank you,
Paul.
everybody, and Happy New Year. Thank you, Gary.
And Paul and I was searching for a restaurant before a Met game. We couldn't find any.
We couldn't read any of the signs. They were all in Chinese.
We couldn't find it. We couldn't find a restaurant. It was very difficult, but we had a good time at the game anyway. So
Absolutely.
Steve, you are up.
Now, only because you mentioned 2004, Harvey, you would have loved the experience that I had that weekend when they honored the 54 team. There were 19 surviving members at that time, and the Wednesday before, Ruben Gomez passes away. Now there's 18. Somewhere in the 70s, the Giants had a Giant magazine. Could be off on the dates a little bit. And one of the magazines, they asked people if they wanted to find a pen pal that they could write to. And I love doing that stuff. So I wrote to a guy named Richard Suen, S-U-E-N. I remember he lived on Concord Street in San Francisco. We became pen pals for probably 10 years. We actually connected in Cooperstown, one of the Hall of Fame weekends, going back, must have been the early 90s, late 80s. Anyway, then I kind of lost touch with him, and he became kind of a curmudgeon after the strikes in baseball, didn't want to deal with it anymore. He attended about 65 games a year at Candlestick. Well, the Giants are coming out, all the old New York Giants. My goal was to find out where they're staying. So I contacted Richard Suen. He says, I think they're at the Omni on California Street. Okay, I got there Friday. I think, Gary, I don't think you came till Saturday. Saturday morning, I walked from the hotel that I stayed at Fisherman's Wharf. I walked to the Omni on California Street. I was wearing my 1951 New York Giants Bobby Thompson jacket, had all my Giant gear on. I enter this hotel, very quiet. I look to the right. Can't make this up. In a circle, Alvin Dark, Davey Williams, Marv Grissom, Don Mueller, Whitey Lockman, Joey Amalfitano. The whole crew was there. So I'm sitting with them and listening to their stories. Dusty Rhodes with his hat the way he used to wear it. They're talking about Thompson's home run, Dusty Rhodes' home runs in 54. And I'm sitting there, and I happen to have with me the 1954 World Series program. I'm sitting and I'm saying, you know what, Rothschild? If you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. So I got up. I walked over to Alvin Dark. He was the first one on the left. Mr. Dark, can you sign this? He signs it. And I'm talking to him and I'm saying, I don't think Willie's in the hotel, right? He says, no, Willie has a house. He doesn't need the hotel. I went from one to the next. And I remember when I got to Lockman, who looked terrific, who actually lived in Scottsdale, handed him the program. And I said, boy, you look like you could still play. He says to me, when was the last time you visited an optometrist? I remember his words. I went around the room, got them all to sign, and I was like shaking. I leave the hotel. And if you remember, Gary, we saw them at night at the ballpark, all wearing their New York hats. We walked downstairs by the dugout. Harvey, that was an experience, and it's hanging up in my garage with the rest of my crap.
That book is worth a lot of money.
I mean, it's got to be authenticated if somebody sells it, but I know, they're all legit. Joey Amalfi. I mean, it was all of them. They were all sitting there except for Mays and Irvin. Irvin probably stayed by Mays. And it was a terrific night, and we sat next to the biggest thing on television. Remember that, Gary?
Yes, I do.
This very heavy woman walks to the side of us and sits down, and Gary looks at me and goes, That's the biggest thing on television. Harvey, you remember that line from The Honeymooners? Anyway, that was it. I just brought it up because you mentioned 2004.
Ralph Cramden was on TV trying to do the $99,000 answer. And Trixie says to Alice, well, how did he look? And Trixie goes, he's the biggest thing on television.
Great story, Steve. Thanks.
Oh, that was. Oh,
By the
God.
way, Bill, you may leave to watch your beloved Jets if you need to. So don't.
No, that's okay.
Oh, God.
Football season ended very early this year, 4 plays. So
Unbelievable.
Bill Klink, you are up.
I just wanted to piggyback on something that Steve said. Boy, there's a name from the past, Richard Sewin. Many of you have never heard of him, don't know anything about him. This
Know
guy,
him?
Yes, this guy had everything in baseball player postcards.
That's right.
Everything.
That's right.
Everything. And I filled out through him and a guy in Nebraska, of all places, I have every Giant in a uniform from 58 to 71. I left the Bay Area in 71, so I cut it off there. But I got everybody, and some of those hard to get. They never played anytime, anywhere, except for a couple of games for the Giants. I got through Richard Sewin. And yeah, I mean, he was not irascible when I knew of him. And we made some trades, and I bought some things from him. And, you know, I still have all of that stuff. But that 54 program story is a wonderful one. And, you know, frankly, the provenance that you have on the story of how you got it, I don't think you have to have it authenticated, but you're going to hang on to that until the day you die anyway. So what, who cares, you know? But that is a great program. It's a better story than it is a program.
It was, you know, I'm sitting there and I was saying, you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. There's nobody around. There's nobody there except the players.
Right place, right time. You were there. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. I'd like to introduce to you Ken. Ken is a lifetime San Francisco Giant fan from their inception in San Francisco. Ken, you are up. Welcome to our group.
Thank you. And good to meet everybody. I'm a teacher, so I'm going to ask a question. That's what I tended to do. I had a 46-year career in education and teacher and a principal in San Francisco. But somebody just mentioned, and forgive me for not knowing all the names yet, but somebody mentioned the autograph they had. And it struck me I had two baseballs that were autographed that were my favorites. I had the 58 Seals and the 57 San Francisco Seals and the 58 San Francisco Giants. And the Giants signature, everybody's in ink, and Willie Mays signed in pencil upside down. And so I always thought, I was always afraid to death I was going to smudge it away and things like that. And God knows it's not in the best condition. But I'd ask the rest of you, what's the best autograph you ever got? What's your favorite autograph that you ever got? I'd be really curious to hear different reactions from people who have been lifelong fans.
Mays on a ball he threw me on May 20th, 1964. That'll be out in the book in a story fashion here shortly. But the ball itself, I'm looking at it right now. It is that tight signature that you have. Mays went to a large signature, you'll know, later on in life. This is the really tight, scripted one on that 64 ball. And I got it at the El Camino ballpark in Palo Alto. I got him to sign it, and I had Warren Spahn sign it because what the heck? Where do you hit the first home run? So I got Spahny to sign the thing too. Maybe it depreciated the value somewhat, but I didn't care.
Mine is when the Giants won their first World Series in 2011. They brought the trophy into Manhattan, and Mays was there to hand it out his biography, and he signed it. And Ken, guy had the biggest hands I've ever seen in my life. They were just like unbelievable how big his hands were. That's what I remember. And I also have a ball that Harvey was nice enough to have Bobby Thompson sign it. And I also had another ball that Bobby Thompson signed and Branca signed as well. So those are some of my better ones.
For me, I never, believe it or not, went to a player for an autograph. I felt, you know, everybody else was going after it. So I was one of those guys in the background, like watching an athlete, you know, sign their name and passing it off. But like Steve mentioned, I was into story hearing, listening. So when a fan would come in from that period of time and start bringing up stories, and the athlete would be saying anything, that would be my thing. I eat that up more than I get a photograph. I mean, you know, things have developed over the years where now you could pay and get an autograph and a picture. I probably would have taken the picture than the autograph. That's me, but I wasn't into that. I would rather, like Steve, you know, be in that room listening to stories back and forth. That's my thing. Thank you.
Ken, if you don't know, Hindi, the lone femme fatale in here, she is known as Mrs. Mays. So she loves Willie Mays. And Ken, there's another guy, he's not here today, but Norm Coleman is his name.
Yeah.
And you should really watch his Zoomcast. He's a great Giant fan. He has every autograph of every San Francisco Giant from 1958 until the present day who has suited up for the Giants. So it's like over, I think, 900 and something autographs. So you would be good buddies with him, I think. So welcome aboard, Ken. Larry, if you guys don't know Larry is the contributed to our newspaper that came out. Larry, it's all yours.
Gary, thank you. Before I'm going to say what I was going to say is I want to talk about autographs. I was very fortunate. I guess it was 59 and or 60 season. I lived off of California Highway 1, which was known as 19th Avenue. And I lived on 20th Avenue in Quintera and Rivera streets. And the streets were listed alphabetically. So on 19th Avenue and Pacheco, Orlando lived. And on 19th Avenue and Rivera, Willie Kirkland lived. And I remember every once in a while, Hindi, I hate to tell you this, but Marguerite would come out and visit for periods of time, and she had her pink T-bird, and it was really something. But I'm gonna tell two stories. One is I took a photo to Orlando's house. I just knocked on the door. He lived in an upper apartment, and you know, the kids in the neighborhood did this all the time, and he was good with it, and so were the other players. But the photo I had, my brother at the time was working in the press room of one of the San Francisco papers, and he would bring home all these unused AP photographs. And this was just a still of Orlando. And I think it was 59 or 60. He was in the on deck circle and he took a foul ball to the cheek. I think it actually might have broken his jaw. But the caption was about him and, you know, sitting in the on deck circle getting hit by this foul ball. And I didn't really pay any attention to it when I went down there, but it was 3 or 4 months later, and he started reading it, and there was this kind of wry smile that came across his face. He didn't say anything, but he just signed, and off I went. The other thing is that Willie would regularly drive kids home from the ballpark. I never got a ride, but my friend Kevin Eagleson, whose dad actually was the engineer that designed the radiant heating system at Candlestick, they had season tickets, and he lived maybe 5 or 6 blocks down 19th Avenue. He got rides home from Willie 3 or 4 times. And, you know, hey, Willie, how about a ride home? Yeah, sure. And they just hit in the back seat. And of course, they wouldn't say anything because they were so, you know, totally, you know, intimidated. but sometimes he and Kirkland would drive home together. One time, I remember Kevin telling me he and Sam Jones were driving home, and they were listening to conversations. It was really just amazing what a different era it was, and how the most fabulous baseball player that ever lived, would drive neighborhood kids home from the ballpark. But the reason I originally raised my hand was just to Ken Hogarty, who you just heard from. We go back to high school together, and had Gary given me any amount of time to write the article that he asked me to write, I would have actually passed it on to Ken, because Ken is one of the finest writers I have ever met. There's a great article where he talks about the great joy he had after going to Game 6 in the 1962 World Series and the Giants winning that game and thinking this is going to happen. And then, it didn't. And let's see how many years, or whatever it was, to 2010 from 62, 38 or whatever.
59.
Ken had the great joy as a prep school principal to give his entire school the afternoon off to go to the parade. So that was an amazing story. But I also want to plug his latest book, which is fabulous. It's his first novel, and it's called Recruiting Blue Chip Prospects, and it's about a high school kid in the 90s who is a fabulous basketball player, and all the politics and corruption and other stuff about recruiting blue chip basketball prospects. It's a fabulous book, and I'd recommend it to anybody. Available on Amazon or Kindle. So just want everybody to know that.
Thank you, Larry.
So thank you, Larry. You sound like my press agent.
Both of you guys, thanks.
No,
thanks.
the bill will come. Yes. One of the stories in one of the publications I had about the Giants actually included Larry. It was when we were seniors in high school, and we finagled our way into the Shriners Parade and wore fezzes and carried signs that said Ray Sadecki for Imperial Potentate, because the Giants had traded Ray Sadecki for Orlando Cepeda, and we were still very angry about that. And somehow we got a mention in Herb Cain that from that little escapade and things like that. So it made for a good story, as most early baseball things did then. But again, thank you, Larry.
I thank both of you guys for finding us, and don't be strangers, okay?
And hopefully, Ken, you might share, I don't know what the copyrights are, because I know some of your stories have been published, but a couple of your Giant stories would be just fabulous in the newsletter. If they're San Francisco Giant stories. But but I was thinking of what I was thinking about writing in the next few days or next week or two was something about the announcers, about Lon Simmons and Russ Hodges, because there's some great stories there. And even going back and doing some of the research, it was interesting, because the first year or two that the Giants came to San Francisco, I understand that there were television broadcasts that were going into New York City that came from Philadelphia, the Giants game. So the people in New York City actually saw more games than we did, because we had no TV that first year or two when the Giants moved to San Francisco.
Sounds great. Next paper will be out in April, so we'll work on that. Dave Lippman, I think you might be it. You gotta unmute, Dave.
How about me, Gary?
Oh, you're next, Frank.
Okay.
Dave, go ahead.
Am I on now?
No, Dave, then you, Frank.
Okay. I tell you, I've had a lot of fun with these Zoom meetings, and hearing everybody talk about their best Giants memories. I don't know if I told you, but I finally got a note from Will Clark for the stuff I sent him. He did not send back my 1984 Giants yearbook with the 4 Giant signatures in it. So I got to write him again and say, that was for you to sign, not for you to keep, but you can keep the rest of it. But the note was very warm. He said he's a baseball historian, so really enjoyed it. So I've been putting a lot of baseball books in my Kindle to cut down in space. And I got 3 books here I'm going to send him when I get out from under a pile of crap at work. Roger Angel's Game Time, a bunch of his columns, a couple of them are about the Giants. Mike Souls, The Pitch That Killed, about what happens when you play baseball without batting helmets. And I think everybody here knows this book by Charles Einstein, Willie's Time, his memoir of Willie Mays through 5 presidencies. So I'm going to send those to him and, see if he enjoys them. As far as, you're talking about autographs, sitting there thinking, geez, I covered the Mets and the Yankees and went for United Press and for the Mets House Oregon Inside Pitch, which means you do not get autographs. In fact, in Yankees Media Guide, it says any reporter who starts catching autographs will get ejected from the ballpark. But I think the closest is the time I was at the Yogi Berra Museum and Monty Irvin was there. He was great. And I brought in a whole bunch of Monty Irvin's stuff with him in it, books. There's a magazine article, and I brought them all over to him. And he was happy to sign them. But Dave Kaplan, who runs the museum, he's looking at me like, "Who are you getting all these signatures for?" I looked right back at him and I said, "For me," because he thought I was going to sell them on eBay or something. I said, no. These are for me. And his brother was there too. He'd been a Negro Leaguer, which I didn't know, and he signed it as well. So it was, that was a big thrill for getting Giants autographs. But the closest I've had to that was actually a Pittsburgh Pirate, John Candelaria. When I was at a Sabre convention, he signed my book about the '79 Pirates, and I told him that I, like him, I was from New York City, and he said, "Well, we all have our faults," and I just lost it. I thought that was one of the funniest things about being a New Yorker I ever heard, so I've been using that ever since. The toughest moment I had as a Giant, the best moment I had as a Giants fan was getting to see the hardware for 2012 to 2014. And when I did the 2012 event, I was told I told Stacy Slaughter, about the Giants, and she apparently she knew my boss, Newark Mayor Cory Booker. When I was done, I wrote a letter to Larry Baer thanking him for bringing the hardware to New York. I said it was more than the Dodgers had ever done, and they remembered their roots. And I told him in the letter about my long history with the Giants and how my great uncle worked in the pool hall that John McGraw and Arnold Rothstein owned. And apparently, Stacy Slaughter told me in a letter she sent back, which included a card for the Gotham Club, that after Bayer read the letter, he went to his people and said, "We ought to have pool tables in the Gotham Club." He got inspired by my great uncle doing that, and I'm thinking, oh great, they're gonna honor my great uncle, who was a bagman and an enforcer for Arnold Rothstein, and led a crew that robbed furniture warehouses in the Bronx. I'm sorry, but I don't think he should be honored. But I think my absolute favorite moment being a Giants fan, I read this to you guys, so punch me in the nose if I'm repeating myself. 2014 World Series, Sabre New York chapter, which is going to copy a lot of the stuff that we do, by the way, Zoom meetings and an electronic newsletter. They're really impressed by it. I get up there and I said, after we're done here, we're having the Sabre meeting at the Mid-Manhattan Library, come one, come all. And then I turned to Mays and I said, as a fellow veteran, I want to thank you for something you did. It was more important than any of the hits you ever got in the major leagues, and that's serving our country and as a member of the armed forces in time of war. And if I live to be 1,000, I will never forget that for 20 seconds there was this dead silence, and I realized that everybody in the room, their brains were spinning. And then it hit them. He'd been drafted in 52 and he was in the Army in 53. And while he didn't get to Korea, like my dad, he could have been yanked over there. And then everybody applauded. And the last thing I did was I asked him, okay, aside from yourself, who was the best defensive center fielder you ever saw? And he was really diplomatic. I mean, he went around in circles, but he kind of indicated that the best one he'd seen besides himself was Ken Griffey Jr. And I tell you, there's no way I could argue with that. And I'm not going to waste time telling you about the dinner we had for Bobby Thompson in 2001, because I think I read everybody here the article I wrote about that. So I don't feel like repeating myself.
Thank you, Dave.
Dave, I had a suggestion, Dave, for you real quick.
Shoot.
To get your book back or magazine, whatever it is, to make it easy on Will, send him a large self-addressed stamped envelope.
Oh, yeah.
As quickly as possible, because the rates are going up on the 21st of January. But get him a large envelope prepaid, so that all he has to do is slip it in it and throw it in the mail. Neither he nor a family member has to wait to mail it at the post office, which is like a terrible blank torture test. Anyhow.
Yeah,
you may do that already, but that's a great way to get things.
Thanks. Frank Lewis, why don't you wrap it up?
Well, I want to thank all of you. It's been a great show. If I don't buy your book or any other book, it's because I'm optically unable to read them without great stress. And if there's a dinner in New York, whatever it is, I cannot comfortably attend it. And now, I thought that I was going to bring up some points. There's AAA, AA, and single A. Does anyone remember B, C, and D leagues?
People are shaking their heads, yes.
In the 50s, they were pretty much destroyed by television. As television expanded and more people could watch big league games on television, the minor leagues, the D, C, and B leagues disappeared. I wonder if anyone has ever thought of that. What else? Yeah, that's just about it. I've had my say. It's been a great year, and I look forward to the next year.
Thank you, Frank. Anybody else who hadn't had a chance want to say anything? If not, I want to thank you all for attending tonight. Happy New Year, healthy and hopefully prosperous. More important, though, is that everybody is healthy. So I am going to shut off the recording. If anybody wants to talk about the Giants for a little bit, I will stick around. But we will see each other in 2024 next Thursday with Zach Ford. Happy New Year. Thank you for everything this year.
Happy New Year.
For all you do. Thank you.